Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the third video on DT4 regions, design and implementation of mutual learning communities, enabling knowledge through community engagement. The aim of this video is just to have an entry point for European public servants willing to understand more about the basics of mutual learning communities and how to use the digital spaces for that. Please let me introduce myself and also my colleague Ana Massa. My name is Fernando Vilariño, and we will be the hosts of this session. I'm Associate Director at Computer Vision Center and Associate Professor at Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. In Catalonia, Spain, I am teaching in machine learning, robotics, and open innovation. And I had the pleasure and honor of being the former ANOL president and a member of the ANOL's executive board. I'm very much interested in the social impact of artificial intelligence and the development of living labs as regulatory learning tools. And I would like to say hello also to my co-host, Ana Massa. Hello, Ana.
Hello, Fernando. Yes, so
Hello.
I'm Ana Massa. Thank you, Fernando. I'm a final year bachelor student at Smart and Sustainable Cities Management at Universitat Autònoma of Barcelona Engineering School. And well, my academic journey has equipped me with a comprehensive understanding of the complex challenges facing modern cities. And I'm currently conducting research in the communities of mutual learning. I'm also developing urban planning and design analysis regarding my final degree thesis. And well, my main focus of study is the humanistic approach of the technology impact in the society.
Good. So we together, and I are going to, as was mentioned, to host this session together a few colleagues also from the community of ANOL and Living-in.eu, and also with providing you with the basics, the entry point for the mutual learning community of DT4 region. First of all, for those who are not familiar with the context in which we are going to develop this webinar, DT4 Regions is a European project from the preliminary action from the European Parliament, a preparatory action supported with European funds that aims at understanding how to develop these communities, these platforms for public servants in the context of artificial intelligence and big data. So this is really relevant because, as you know, big data and artificial intelligence has become one of the most crucial aspects of the innovation lately, and we are very much looking forward, definitely, to know more and to contribute to the digital transition, this twin digital and green transition that is also a social transition in a just approach. We have another context, and we would like also to share today with that and to speak about how to improve this connection towards the interoperability of solutions in European cities and regions on artificial intelligence and big data. This is related to the initiative Living-in.eu. Living-in.eu aims at joining a number of signatories from European municipalities and regions and communities in order to advance in the digital transformation. So this is a political declaration that also aims at jointly boosting and sustaining the development of artificial intelligence solutions and the development of big data approaches. That has to be also interconnected. So in some way, what we are going to understand or try to understand today is how is this everything connected together? And for that, what we're going to tackle is how to create, how to design these communities from the perspective of the different types of spaces that we must create. A community, and we will see later, it is not just a number of members. A community is more than that. And one of the essential tools that we need in order to develop these communities are the spaces. From this perspective, we can think of physical spaces, and we can think about digital spaces. Physical spaces can be approached to community centers or workplaces, educational centers, and informal spaces in general, in which people can join physically. But we have, and every time it's more frequent to find, other type of spaces, which are the digital spaces. In our life, we are having the social media platforms, niches for specific context platforms, also virtual environments and different applications that we are using in the internet. So this provides a duality between the concept of spaces and the concept of communities. Communities for a physical space and communities in digital spaces. We will see also during the development of this workshop that we also have a link towards the digital identities. So this provides our physical identity also a digital dimension. And this is something that we will very much explore. So when we are talking about communities of mutual learning, we will think about a community on one side, one of the pillars, and the spaces on the other side, the other pillar. And with these spaces, we can think of physical spaces and we can think of digital spaces. And we will focus today on the second, on the digital spaces. We will leave the physical spaces and the place-based innovation to our last work, our last video that will be shared for webinar 4 in 1 week time. So first of all, as I was mentioning before, when we are tackling the context of community, we will see that a community is much more than a number of members, is more than a group of people doing things. And it is very important for us to start building up this concept of a structure and protocols and procedures associated to communities, particularly in the context of mutual learning. And today, together with Anna and the rest of the colleagues, we will deepen into this specific approach. How does it differ from being part of a team or a group? The fact that we are joining a community of learners. This is very important because this will allow us to go deeper and to try to evolve into the way that we can share knowledge between the different European public servants. And this is not easy. We know there are political barriers, there are ideological barriers, there are also the fact that we are reluctant in order to show our weaknesses or the failures that we are having. So the aspect of the community development is essential from this perspective. And this will be the first pillar that we will develop today. The second pillar, as I was mentioning before, is the digital learning environment. So in the context of DT4REGIOns, what we are providing also with a link to the living-in.eu would be how to make use of these digital learning environments in order to empower our communities. As I was mentioning before, we have the experience of the social platforms, we have experience in LinkedIn, we have experience also in different types of exchanges regarding Twitters and many, many others. So there are niche-specific platforms as well, but here the main question is that we want to state today is how digital spaces can promote mutual learning communities. How can we use these new tools that we are having in the internet in order to deploy, to unleash the potential of these mutual learning communities? From a different perspective, the question would be, which are the possibilities that the digital environments can offer? And this is a tricky question because the possibilities are the possibilities that they offer today. but we have to think also in a close future in which we are having other platforms that now are very immature, but will be mature in a very close future. We have to understand that the speed in which platforms are evolving now is very, very high. And for that reason, we will focus on particularly on virtual environments in this approach to the metaverse and how we can, in some way, create these communities around these specific virtual environments. We are not alone, as you can see here. We can have a number of approaches for this implementation of the digital spaces that can seem a little bit chaotic from now. From the perspective of social media platforms, we have Reddit, to YouTube for video sharing, Reddit for forum discussion, Twitter for microblogging, and WordPress, another blog platforms that can help us to go for blogs. Regarding niche-specific platforms, we can go for academics. We can have ResearchGate for developers of software. We can have GitHubs, in which you have an enormous collection of open software and collaboratory contributions for software development. For musicians, we can have Bandcamp and other areas of creativity like Behance. But in addition to that, now we are very much used to other applications and collaborative apps, such as Microsoft Teams, Slack for group and project development, Google Drive for sharing our data, Miro board for co-creative approaches, and also social networking for such as LinkedIn or Instagram in the case of sharing our pictures, or LinkedIn if we are sharing our professional approaches. But we have also these virtual environments that I insist it will be one of the key elements in our discussion today, from which we can identify, for instance, VRChat, Second Life, Sansar, Hubs, and Meta, which is the transformation of Facebook in this metaverse approach. And here we can speak about virtual reality, in which we are going to provide a completely virtual environment, extended reality, in which what we are having is the vision of our real world with specific virtual elements that create also the platform mixed reality and augmented reality. And this augmented reality, what we are having is a blending of this virtual approach and also these actual extended reality aspects. So in some way, what we are having here is the possibility of including digital spaces into our real spaces, into our physical spaces, being both digital and physical, now the real space that we can have in order to develop our communities of mutual learning. So as you can see, the new approach that we are having is definitely breaking the walls and breaking the barriers of the physicality. This is not for free. We have to learn and understand how to do it in order to unleash all the power, as we were mentioning today, as we were mentioning so far. And for that reason, I think that now we are advancing in this line, and for those who will be willing to advance in the latest approaches, particularly that we are having from the European Commission, I would very much recommend this study in which we are analyzing the virtual and augmented reality industrial coalition strategic paper. This is probably one of the bases about the state of the art on how the approach for the industrial actors are approaching the new scenarios, literally new scenarios for the development of not only learning communities, but also all kinds of professional environments. This approach is very interesting, and I think this could be a very good entry point for those who are willing to know more about the virtual and augmented reality paradigms. Okay, so now we are opening the door, right, for this training in in mutual learning communities for this proposition for mutual learning communities to the Living-in.eu approach through the DT4 regions. And with that, I would very much like now to give the word to my colleague Aramasa in order to go step by step, learning more about the fundamentals of the communities of mutual learning. Anna, if you wish, the floor is yours.
Right, thank you, Fernando. If you don't mind, I'll be sharing my screen.
Sure.
Good. Can you see? Do you see my presentation?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Perfect. So yes, making a little bit of a recap regarding what previously Fernando mentioned about the communities of mutual learning. The first thing I want to make clear is that what we understand for a community of mutual learning is the way in how the knowledge is being managed, and the way in which we are sharing knowledge among peers and around the people that we are next to, right? So yeah, I'll be giving three main steps based on research on how do these mutual learning communities be developed. So the first thing we need to take into account and we need to identify is which is the community identity, right? So which is this shared purpose that makes people getting along, right? So when we are talking about public servants, we may think about any administration meeting that maybe it's being treating some specific topic on the 2030 agenda, and it develops on a later discussion regarding some of these topics. So maybe some of these public administrators may learn at the end of the day something new and how to implement that on further administration tasks, right? So once we have this identity identified, we need to know, we need to implement the right methodologies so that the knowledge is able to be shared, right? So to implement this knowledge sharing in a way that it's that anyone is actively participating, and that they can collaborate together, right? So there are many different methodologies to do that. One we can think about it's workshops where many different topics are being discussed, or innovation challenges. So third, it's these learning environments that we need to make sure that both physical or digital environments are appropriate to develop this knowledge. So when we think about physical environments, we may think about a flexible space with a good lighting or so. And for a digital space, we may think about a user-friendly space with easy to use collaboration tools, right? All of that in order to enhance this knowledge sharing and collaboration in our mutual learning communities. Some of the basic bibliography on these topics that are a nice entry point are these for understanding the community, as we may understand which is the basis for that community. Here we have some TED Talks that explain how this knowledge management and innovation are focused, and many others that are musts to have a look. Then the enabling knowledge sharing, that we need to understand which are the methodologies, the right methodologies to implement for our communities, right? So there are many papers regarding this topic that should have a read, and regarding the learning environments, we also have some articles and papers that are for sure being to be relevant in this topic. We have here one must that I would say is this fostering inclusion in digital spaces for Enrique M. and Anchich. I think that it should be a must for everyone, right? We also know that there have been many mutual learning exercises from the European Commission that are some lessons learned that may also help to have this approach. And for the this approach that Fernando was mentioning regarding what is the next step to do these virtual environments develop, we have also many literature on the implementation of the virtual environments regarding immersive learning experiences. Right? So.
Thank you, Anna. Maybe we can have a quick stop here in order to summarize about what you have shared so far. Okay, some take-home messages on communities of mutual learning. The first point is the identification and understanding of the community. This means to make sure about the culture, the shared values and purposes. This is related to the first citations that you were sharing in the bibliography, isn't it? Okay, perfect. Then we are having this bringing in the knowledge sharing enablers. These knowledge sharing enablers, if we understood correctly, is not meaning that just by having people working together, they are going to exchange things in a fruitful way. There are some enablers that are needed, isn't that?
Right, exactly. Yeah, so there are some concrete methodologies to start developing this knowledge that, well, many of them are summarized in the bibliography, but it's, for example, project-based learning or this approach to the knowledge that it's necessary.
Okay, so this is not for free. We have to not only provide a place to meet, but also to provide a methodology and a situation for that to happen. And this would be the second take-home message. And you are speaking also about the third take-home message. That means that even though you are having a place, not every place is suitable in order to develop these communities of mutual learning, isn't it?
Exactly. So we need to understand that the space where we are developing these community actions, it's the key. I would say one of the two most important things to take into account when implementing this type of communities.
All right, good. So now we have three very important take-home messages and key approaches. So let us learn more, maybe with a number of examples, if that is possible.
Right. So what we are going to approach now is this spaces thing, right? So as of course, the physical spaces are one thing that is very extensive, but now we are focusing on the digital spaces, concretely in the virtual environments, right? So in order to develop these features and to get along with these virtual environments, well, we mainly focused on two objectives. The first one is to explore these possibilities of the collaboration in a virtual space, and in a way that it's not, it may be nothing new, but it is, of course, something to explore, right? To understand which are these features that we can have. And well, this is the second objective, that is the testing and understanding the features for collaborative metaverse spaces, right? So in order to do that, what we did was to develop a first approach to these features and to understand better which is the interaction for these metaverse spaces, right? So I'll be sharing now a video. I'll be explaining that video of which are these features that we implemented in this digital space. Let me know if you see the blue screen.
Yes.
Fernando? Yes, perfect. So this is the CBC metaverse, right? Well, at first we see that there is a sandbox. The sandbox space is its main feature, its main reason to be there is to first get this interaction with the key elements that we will be having. So here you see the screen. For the screen, we understand that it's the way to share videos, presentations, and many other things that are publicly available. And yes, so here we see how an URL is being pasted and reproducing a video. We can practice to catch this can or to catch a pen and start drawing in the air, as this is one of the main features that we implemented in the further rooms. Here we can see how the writing paper works. So if we keep working, here we see the conference room. So we can have a seat, right, and watch anyone that is being presenting their presentations or reproducing any videos there. Here we see the same process to paste this video, and right after we can see how it reproduces. I need to make a point here that it's the interaction with these avatars. It's way different if you are having a headset or if you are working with the desktop version, right? As you see here, the people with the headset can raise their hand because they have mobility, but if you're working with the desktop, it's not possible to do that. So this is something to take into account. We will have a discussion afterwards. So here we see how we got out of there. Here we are in the central plaza. We can see that there are many chairs to sit on and different spaces and tables. So here we can see how there is a paper which anyone can take a look at it. Anyone can have different texts added, and they can share all along this feature. And yeah, well, here we can see how it is to be seated there. And the next space is this poster in the walls along the corridor. So here we can have the different informations, up on date, and well, these are photographies of actual posters on the CBC. I must mention that this is a digital twin of the actual CBC. I didn't mention that. So the main feature the main enabling that this is doing is to give this space for fixed information, right? So anyone can take a look at it. Here we can see how an avatar reacts with emojis, and yeah, we can have as many posters as we like. And now we have entered this laboratory space, right? In this laboratory space, what we intended to do is to bring up these pens, these colorful pens, to draw up some diagrams or any information relevant. And oh, I'm sorry, we also made no gravity papers. So in order to add information to these diagrams, as you can see there, with some ideas or anything in common. So anyone can take these pens, and anyone can write in these papers, right? So last but not least, we have this cafeteria. Here we can have this experience with an actual socializing space, right? While taking these cans of the vending machine, soft drinks, and enjoy actually like this for a break or networking or whatever, right? So we enable this space. Also, you can take a seat on these chairs, and yeah, basically this is the CBC metaverse, right? So I'll be now explaining. Okay, so yeah, as you can see in the top right corner, we are taking back to these digital learning environments that we mentioned. Well, as I mentioned before, these two objectives: to explore and to understand these possible features. Right, so, well, this is a quick summary of what did you see now. So at first we entered and we saw the sandbox where we have a map of the whole place, and which from where we can understand where we are and which are the different places we can address. Also, this sandbox is primordial to have it in order to interact with the features and to understand how, in the case of the headset, how do they work, how does it work, and in the case of the desktop, also which are the tools that we will be finding, right? In the conference room, as I mentioned, this is for one linear conversation, and well, I'll be further explaining that in the next slides. the draw and write room, the poster space, central plaza, and the cafeteria. Right, so the sandbox, it has 5 features that it's, well, the map of the
Anna,
place.
let us please have a little, can we get back 1 second? Because
Sure,
I understand that this is the 5, or let's say the 6 interaction spaces that we have identified proposing different types of interactions. I assume that with these different type of interactions, we're expected to do different things and maybe different objectives associated to those, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for pointing that out, Fernando.
Yeah, so it's basically not related to just the things that we can do there, but they have a reason to exist. These rooms have a specific reason to exist, which is associated to the things that we can do there. Definitely, we could use all the features in one single room, but then we will be going against this specification of the spaces and utilities of every space. So the idea of having this mixed physical space with this digital space with the specific roles and expected things to be doing, in some way they have to they have a specific meaningfulness, right?
Right, Fernando, yes, totally sure. For sure. So each one of these spaces is intended to have its own feature, but not just the feature, it's the concept of the room, right? So that's what I'll be explaining next. So, right, with the sandbox, what we intended to do is to provide this safe space before entering the real scenarios, right? So as a result of previous workshops, it was a relevant output that the first interaction with this metaverse experience was not good enough by only acceding there. So we needed to implement this sandbox so people can feel safe of what they are doing and to get comfortable with the tools and to start enjoying their experience, but in a safe way, right? So here we can have, as you saw in the video, the media player, the pen to draw, the paper to write, and the can to pick.
So if I can summarize your comment here, in this conversation that we are having regarding the spaces, the sandbox is a compulsory entry point, and you identify them as a safe space. And can you develop a little bit on this safe space, which is why is this space safe for the start?
Right. So as I was mentioning, this sandbox is intended to be this safe space, but in a way that the first interaction is not being in a public space, right? So when you first interact with the features, you get in touch with them. It is obvious that you will not be perfectly, I don't know, pasting this link to the screen or perfectly understanding how to pick this paper. But if you do it in a private way, in a private space that it's only for testing, it's only for playing, well, then you can have this comfort, this previous comfort, and this this comfort and this feeling of safe before getting into public exposure, let's say.
It is interesting if I then to see that we can make failures here safely.
Of course, yeah.
We shouldn't be ashamed of not knowing how things work. And
Exactly.
we understand that for public servants, sometimes this is not easy, right? Because we are having an institution behind, right? So if we are presenting something, everything is super serious. So here we have a place in which it is expected for us to learn how to do things, right?
Exactly that. I couldn't say it better.
Good. Okay, so here then the take-home message, I think, if I can steal a take-home message from you, it would be we can fail here, right? You are allowed to fail here, try, test, because this is a place where you're going to understand how to use the tools in the different rooms. And don't worry, we will meet here. and when you feel confident, then let's go to the other tour, to the other rooms.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This is the to take home message for everyone. Right. So let's keep moving forward. Next, we find this conference room. For the conference room, what we intended to do is to have this one-directional presentation, right? So to do that, we faced an issue in the platform that we are developing that, and it's that everyone it's managing their own volume and their own configuration, microphone configuration. So in order to manage that, since we are not having still yet the knowledge to manage the whole room configuration, it's to, as you can see here, to put some indications for one's volume, so that anyone that first gets inside understands that they need to mute themselves and just to have this space, use it for what it is intended to, right? So once this is understood, we can sit, right? As you see, and there are sittable chairs, and so that anyone can feel like a more real-like experience by sitting there, and we can project any presentations, any videos, any public thing that we want to share, right?
I see, Anna, that here we are having like a regular webinar, right? But eventually this could be scalable in terms that we can have, for instance, 100 people in the room, and not necessarily the 45 or 50 or 80 that are suitable for the CVC, the real CVC.
Mm-hmm.
There would be
Exactly,
any problem in that, in having more people that need it, even we are very, very packed in the room.
No, and that's one of the to develop, right, features. So as you know, the CVC only can hold like 45, 50 people, as you mentioned. But in this format, in this way, in the virtual metaverse, virtual environments, you can fit in as much as the license for the space allows to. That, for what we know now, it's unlimited, right? So you can open an instance and anyone can join in, right? And they are virtually in the physical space. That is something hard to imagine now, but as you can see here, it's something that it's already happening, right? So when we were testing this demo, we were physically in the CVC, but also virtually in the CVC, right? So this chance to interact virtually and having no limitations, no geographical limitations, not quantity and amount of people limitations, is something that it's, in my opinion, and seeing the reality, it's something that can benefit a lot, both the institutions and the individuals that want to join any conference or anything that it's developed here.
Good.
Right.
So now we are having a space that we are used to, in which we can have webinars, and where we can have, after the presentation, the discussion and raise the hand as well if we are having the glasses, the virtual glasses,
exactly,
or interact in different ways if we are having the desktop application, right? So glasses, as you mentioned, they play a role here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, later I summarize some of the lessons learned, but one of them is the headset plays an important role here with the one self-expression, right? As you saw before in the video, there was some reactions with emojis. That it's the top demonstration of reaction that you can have in a desktop user, but in a headset user, you can clap your hands, you can raise your hand. Well, you can have this more real-like behavior, right? So yeah, we will be mentioning that if you want later in the lessons learned. So if we keep now we keep talking about the rooms. Here we see the draw and write room. So this is the main space dedicated for collaboration and brainstorming. So this is like to understand it, it's like a lab where things are happening, right? So you can be with your team, with random groups of people developing all together a diagram with different colors and all over the place. So as you can see, this is not a whiteboard with a pen. It's that you can write anything and draw anything all over the place in the air. So this feature, and together with the papers with no gravity, are intended to be this space where to share anything, right? To think, to talk, to erase, to draw, and to implement these features. I want to point out here that we cannot have anything similar in physical terms, right? Well, of course we can. We can draw in a whiteboard. We can erase also, but not as much as it is being done here, right? So as you mentioned before, for the maximum amount of people, there is none. So anyone can join here, and you can be sharing that with anyone there. So anyone can be making apportations or writing or whatever they want, right?
Good. So if in this draw and write, what we are having is a space for, in some way, sketching, right? It is not necessary that we are having this on the air or on the paper, but in some way, what we are having a draw and write space, but we are saying that if we want to do it, we have to move virtually from one room to the other room in which we are expected to have the place to do that. And this is a very interesting thing because we have the feeling that in these virtual spaces, there are no rules and we can go wherever we want. But this is not the case, because what you're suggesting is if the draw and write takes place in the draw and write place, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. This is one of the key things, right? To understand that each place has its thing to be done there, so that you will be not drawing in the central patio, as well as you will not be testing in the draw and write, right?
So there is kind of an etiquette, right, for the virtual spaces as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think that having all these different etiquettes, all these different spaces to do different things virtually in the same place. So as we understand that there are no different sessions to join in, right? It's everything in the same place. As you would understand in the Teams meeting, to have these sessions separately, right? So now we are doing something somewhere and we go out, we go do something somewhere else. But having everything in the same space just by walking out, right, virtually and getting inside another room, it is a good thing to talk about and to start thinking how to implement that and how could that be beneficial, right? So I think this is something important to talk about too. Right. Do you have anything else to comment here, Fernando?
No, please, let us move on. So the take-home message here would be that every place has its reason, and we have to do the things that are expected in every place, so there is an etiquette.
Right. So this poster space, maybe it's the thing that looks more familiar, right, in the physical terms. So this is just to have up-on-date information and that is accessible for anyone that is just walking across the corridor, or maybe that it's some presentation that is physically standing there and someone is explaining the poster, as you can see in the image, right? But here the key thing that we developed is to make this photo of an actual poster and to paste it here, right? So, well, we can notice here that this is a good implementation in terms of having physical information, right? Not like the URL boxes of media playing, but this is something that it's part of the environment, right? So this can only be updated for the administrator of the space, something that in some cases it may be giving an extra point to that information, so you know that it's whatever it is there, it's fashion and it's good information, so it's legally done. And yeah, it's basically that. So
This is very interesting then, because if we can have different posters, I can move from poster to poster and speak with different people. So I can find that, for instance, when we are having the European Network of Living Labs, Open Living Lab Days, or the DT4 Regions Conference, right? We could probably have different CDCs multiplied with different rooms, with different posters that are very easily adapted. So there is an element of scalability associated to that, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Regarding the scalability, it's one of the key points, right? The most interesting features of the virtual environments themselves, right? So it's the same thing for the conference room, that you can be having thousands or hundreds of people in the same place. But in these open areas, if you replicate this virtually, this for anyone, you make 1,000 of instances of the same space, everyone will be seeing the same thing, right? And yes, this is definitely an added value to that. Yeah, I think that there are only 2 places remaining. So this is the Central Plaza. As you saw in the video, this is an outdoor space. And well, the main purpose here is to have this place to share ideas, to do some networking, not like in the cafeteria, but in an open space, and also to take a seat, right? There are many different, there are different amounts of tables for different sized groups, right? So you can join a couple, you can join a 5 persons group, or you can just be sharing some particular notes with the people around you, right? So we left here a paper to write things down, but the papers are also they can be brought from one place to another. So this is an added value for the papers too, that they are not standing physically in a place, but they can be, transported from one place to another. So the main things we done here is to have a more relaxed space, right? Not an indoor, but an outdoor space. And well, also these sitting chairs allows to have this more real-life experience, right? So, okay, let's have a seat, let's go outside, and let's share ideas together, let's speak, and so on.
What I perceive here, Anna, is that what you are posing is that the same way in which we are enjoying this outdoor plaza, this central plaza in the real world, we're expecting to act in that way also in the physical world. So there is, let's say, a communication between the habits and the expectations that we are having in the actual physical world, just for the fact that it looks like this virtual world, right?
Yes, definitely. I would say that this this assumption that you make in a physical space, having the chance, having this opportunity to replicate this so human feeling in the virtual space, it's a plus to develop that. So you don't need physically an open space to understand that this is an open space, and that what is expected to be done here, it's just to sit and chill, let's say, right? So this is playing with the mentality of people, but in another way. So this space is meant to do what the physical space is meant to do. So what you're meant to do in the physical space. Yeah,
Good.
definitely. Good. So not an outdoor, but an indoor space. Here we have the cafeteria. So we enable this space to take a break and network, most likely, similar way than outdoor space, but an indoor. And what we added here to add this plus on the real life experience is this soft drinks vending machine, right? So that you can go virtually to take this scan. So, okay, let's meet and let's have a break, right? Let's go to the cafeteria, and okay, you may follow a line, and then when it's your turn, you go pick up your can, and you can even drink it, right? You saw in the video that with the headsets, you can have similar experience than if you were drinking that, right? So here you can have that there are no separated tables, but this is a common table, maybe to have even lunch, right, virtually. So this is more focused on this indoor concept of break room, right?
It is very interesting because when you are saying that let's have a drink, right? So in the virtual world, you are buying a drink. We will keep the buying thing out from the equation now, right? We can speak about that in another webinar, right? How to implement potential business models or potential blockchain approaches, etc. But let us talk about the drinking thing. You can do it also having your drink, right? While you are having a virtual drink as well, as a way of over-opposing or as a way of providing also this feeling of enjoying your drink with your colleague. So it seems also like a bit of an act of respect, right? And consideration. Having let's have a drink together, right? To have it in a separate space, which maybe we can have some confidentiality in the things that we are saying, etc., etc. Shouldn't that be that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So this completely changed the game, right? So I was remembering now during the pandemic that there were being, conferences or many things online and at home. So when you said, okay, I'm going to have lunch, I'm going to have a break, and everyone disconnected from the place and you were having your own break at home. Or maybe if you were lucky, you had your friends on the phone and you were joining them, right? But this way you can have this break, you can be relaxed in and not getting out of this virtual environment, right? So you can go virtually to have this break and to have, well, at the same time, you can be having, of course, your break at home, but understanding that this is part of the experience online. Mm-hmm.
Good. So maybe it's time to go for some lessons learned from all these approaches, Anna.
Definitely. Yeah. So far, what we have noticed is, as I was mentioning before, that with the headset, well, it is an important thing to take into account, right? So I know that not everyone has a headset, but it makes a huge difference when talking about this experience regarding, of course, to the drawing thing, or well, the interaction, the physical movements that your avatar can do. It makes a huge difference in this way. Although for the writing with the keyboard, we will be saying later in the future work that is remaining to do. For the writing, the headset is not so appropriate, so you need to be pressing one by one the letters to write something on the paper. So we will be needing to have a look at it. Next thing to mention for the lessons learned is that socializing and networking is being so deeply worked here. As you saw, the outdoor and indoor spaces are mainly focused to have this approach to socializing. And we thought that, well, our experience in this way is that it is a relevant thing to approach and to keep developing, right, in order to implement this space of networking, of informal networking, in the same virtual space that is happening the conference, for instance, but not separated things, but one common thing. So another thing to mention is this real-time file updates. So we saw that with our papers, we could be writing down things at the same time that other people are writing down things. But then only the last thing to be written would be updated, right? So we need to focus on these real-time updates and how to implement this in a good manner so that anyone can be writing things and things can be recorded, not just the last one. Right. Well, as I mentioned before, the training sandbox is the key for the headset. Well, and both for headset and desktop, but mainly for the headset, as this is something really new for everyone, and it's not so easy to handle the things and to understand everything. And well, what we noticed is something that may look funny, but it's that for the headset experience, well, while you are wearing your glasses, if you're sitting, you need to take into account that your avatar is moving, right? So you display the move forward, move on the side to side, or move backward, but you're physically not moving, right? So this is something that definitely needs to be studied forward, because at least in my case, I was having some, not serious, but I was having some headache after the experience. So I've noticed that standing while enjoying this experience makes a difference too, right? So the review here is to be standing while using headset. Right.
Good. So we have a bunch of lessons learned that should be taken into account in order to implement the dynamics within the physical spaces, in order to implement the digital experience, right?
Right.
Very
Exactly.
important. What do you think that's next?
Well, next it's the, as I was mentioning, there are some future works to develop, some regarding these lessons learned, and some regarding things that we could start studying how to implement, right? The first thing we could start studying how to implement is for, let's imagine that we are having a conference in this digital environment, and it would be great to include this card exchange among avatars, right? So, okay, Fernando, here you have my card, I'm Anna, and my information, right? So this is something, in my opinion, that is key and primordial to start developing in order to have these private interactions with people, right, in a formal way. So right next we have this configuration for the rooms. As you saw before, we had this 1-by-1 configuration, so anyone is responsible for their volumes and for their microphones. So what we could implement or study how to do it is to, once you get inside the conference room, let's say, your microphone is muted, and unless you go out, you cannot speak. Right, so this way we can avoid errors and configurations for many of the people joining. Right, as I was mentioning before, some of the future work that is willing to be done is to have this keyboard implemented for an easier experience while wearing headsets, in order to start writing and to interact in a better way, right, with the papers, of course, and if there is a chat anytime. Another thing, it's this avatar. So you may have noticed that the whole thematic is some sort of anime style, right? So this is because of the VR chat design, right? So we need to start implementing, or to start studying how to implement this Oculus avatar. So Oculus has, you can have a user, right, with your characteristics, with your blonde or dark hair and whatever are your features. But once you get inside this world, you need to pick up a different avatar, right? So to avoid this change, I think it would be great. So in order that anyone can be identifiable, right, through this virtual experience. And last but not least, to add some applications, we noticed that there are some interesting features regarding these nodes and some apps that could be really, really interesting to implement here for the diagrams and, well, for many other things that can be developed. And we need to study forward on this. I think that's all for my part, Fernando.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think that we learned a lot also for both the lessons learned and the future work. I think that the CVC virtual environment is a nice example of how to develop these mutual learning communities. Remember these two pillars, the community and the virtual environment for the community development. So let us follow up now, because we are having very interesting contributions now. We have prepared a number of contributions from our panel of experts. That first, Jennifer Samaniego, Deputy Director of RAIN Ecuador Immersive Learning Network. Also, we have with us Giacomo Lozzi today, the Capacity Builder at Living.eu, the European Networks of Living Labs. And also we had Marco Turunen confirmed, but finally Marco couldn't couldn't do it today, so we will wait for his presentation in a future webinar. But first of all, let me introduce the video that Jennifer has shared with us. Jennifer is a Spanish speaker, but she's really embedded into the development of immersive environments. So I very much recommend to follow the work that Jennifer has been doing as a background in engineering and information systems and computation in the Master of Data Science from the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya as well. She's innovation analyst in the Directorate of Technologies for Education of the Office of the Vice Rectorate for Open and Remote Modalities, and also the responsible for the UTPL Virtual Reality Club. So as you can see, Jennifer is an amazing expert. She's also deputy director of the Immersive Learning Network chapter of Ecuador. So I very much recommend you to follow the Building an Immersive Educational Future and the role of the digital communities that Jennifer has been developing so far. We had the chance to have a very interesting conversation with Jennifer, and we recorded her presentation. As I was mentioning, this is in Spanish with English subtitles, and you can have access to the video recorded and shared in the DT4Regions platform regarding building an immersive educational future, the role of digital communities. We also had this discussion also with Jennifer by the end of the video. Don't miss it, because this will help us also to understand to what extent these approaches that are introduced to us are already being integrated into the different learning communities, and particularly in the immersive community that Jennifer is developing. So please use this contextualization that Jennifer is providing with us. Again, you can have the video in the QR provided, and also in the DT4Regions platform, as I said, of the videos that we are sharing with the community. Again, this is in Spanish, but subtitled in English, so you can follow it very well. And now let me pass on the floor to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Giacomo Lozzi, Senior Project Manager at the European Network of Living Labs and Giacomo is an experienced urban policy professional specializing in research and innovation in the field of urban and mobility. He works closely with public and private organizations and actively engages with European institutions. He holds a PhD in applied economics, government and institutions, focusing on transformative role of public authorities in urban sustainability. So I think that there is no one better than Giacomo in order to introduce us to the specificities in which innovation is driven in order to cultivate connections for mutual learning in the context of the living-in.eu community. So Giacomo, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Hello, so Giacomo, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I'll share my screen if it's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. Loading in. Can you see it full screen?
Not really. We are seeing the presenter's view, not the full screen.
Okay.
And you have it in Italian, so I'm not very much sure if I can support you with the right menu.
Change. Wait a second. I'll try another thing. And it's very slow. In the meantime, I can start talking maybe. Just let me try one more thing. Otherwise, maybe I don't manage. You can share the one I sent to you, but just 1 second.
Okay. Any advice? Maybe we can share it if you prefer, Giacomo.
Yeah, maybe it's easier, although it was not the latest version, but it's okay.
Okay. I think that all is sharing now. We need to full screen as well. Good. Now we're full screen, Giacomo.
Okay. Thanks, and sorry again for the
No problem.
inconvenience. So my name is Giacomo Lozzi, and I'm involved in the Living-in-EU initiative. That is a movement that is looking at how local and regional authorities can be supported when it comes to digitalization. So you can go to the next slide, please. So I would start saying a few words about endow. That is the organization I work for, and that is coordinating these activities within the Living-in-EU movement. endow is a network of living labs. It's called the European Network of Living Labs, although we have also international members. We have around 150 members from all over the world, and we as secretariat, we support them in bringing over their activities. We have strong capacity building programs. We help them bring in the living lab concept at the EU policy level, and we also help them, and in line with this with today's webinar, we facilitate peer-to-peer exchange and create a community among them. So I think we can talk more about this later. We go to the next slide, please. I can tell you more about Living-in-EU capacity building activities that we lead within as endow. So the overall goal is to make the Living-in-EU movement a platform for knowledge exchange, capacity building, and mutual learning on the digital transformation of European cities and regions. So the core members of this initiative are cities and regions from Europe that want to learn more about digitalization of their public services. And so we try to facilitate this. And so we organize interactive learning sessions for them. We facilitate the sharing of good practices and use cases. We aim to increase the uptake of digital solutions. So what is tested in one project can be then transferred to other cities and upscaled. And we develop and disseminate capacity building materials. Next slide, please. So we have different target groups of these capacity building activities. As I said, the core group is the signatories, so the public authorities that endorse the declaration, which is the basis of the Living-in-EU community. And then we have the supporters that are mainly industry members that provide the solution. So let's say the offer side of the story, while the cities are the demand. And then we have the broader community that it's our all the stakeholders, including research centers, civil organizations, and NGOs that revolve around these activities. Next slide, please. So we have two main strands of activities. One is the broader capacity building program that it's addressing all the stakeholders that I mentioned before, target groups. And then we have a dedicated area of exchange dedicated to the signatories, that it's the education and capacity building subgroup. Next, please. So regarding the capacity building program, you can go to the next slide. I can tell you more about it. It's as the project started a few months ago, this is now under preparation, both from a structural perspective, but also in terms of content that we want to include. And here we will also detect and collect capacity building tools from existing projects and initiatives. So we will have original and new content, but also we want to avoid duplication, so we will build upon what is already existing. Regarding the ad hoc materials and activities that we will prepare, there are video webinars, workshops, interactive sessions, open debates, training sessions, and so very different types of capacity building and informational activities. Yeah, you can go. So as I mentioned before, the approach is to prevent the duplication of efforts. So we will set up a catalog of tools and also dedicated to capacity building activities that we will store then on the platform, but we will try also to organize it not just a mere repository, but rather as an interactive catalog where you can also filter the tools based on your interest and topics you want to address, but also the type of tools you want to use. And also thanks to that, we will have an informative tools package that we can then share with interested stakeholders. We also want to collaborate and align with other projects, both the running ones and the ones that have already concluded. And we will have some deployment considerations. So how these tools can help support the deployment of digital assets and tools that are also that are first tested in some research and innovation projects. Next slide, please. So regarding the second strand, so the education and capacity building subgroup, just one step back to explain that the Living-in-EU initiative has 5 subgroups. So the education and capacity building one is only a part of the cake, as you see. Then we engage cities and regions in exchanging on different topics related to the digital solutions that we promote within the platform, that are mainly local digital twins, local urban platforms, and data spaces. Next, please. So focusing on the education and capacity building subgroup, as I said, it's led by us and all. And the idea is to empower innovation through education and capacity building. So we look at the part of the story that concerns the improvement of skills, especially of the city officials, and so how then they can use those tools in a way that, first of all, they understand what they are doing, and so they can also have a user-centric approach when they design them, and so to empower them in this regard, and leverage the skills and methods for effective digitalization. Next, please. This is just an example of something we did in the past this year. Just to kick off the capacity building activities, we organized a workshop where we identified the barriers in terms of indeed of capacity building. We identified field of works. We put an accent on the continuity and integration with other initiatives. And it's important to say that this was built also on a previous workshop that was organized together with DT4REGIOns. So these two projects are really linked when it comes to capacity building activities, and we are building upon the results of this project too. Next, please. So thanks to this workshop, we have identified some priorities for this year. We want to increase the skills of public administrations on user involvement in digital twins design, and we already had a workshop on this. I'll say more about it later. We want to support public administrations to identifying funding resources and increase the levels of implementation. So how they can blend funding to implement different phases of the project. Sometimes you need a specific type of funding for researching. Then when you want to implement things, you go to another budget line. So we want to empower them in this direction. And by the end of this year, we will have a first draft of what I mentioned before, this inventory of tools that will collect capacity building tools from different projects. Next, please. So yeah, this is the example of what we have already done this year. It was a webinar on empowering user participation in digital twin design. If you go to the next slide, you can see a bit the cases. So the idea was really to look at how, before making these solutions working from a technical point of view and address the legal and financial concerns that exist, but how you make sure that the users and also the citizens are engaged to design it in a way that first of all identifies and embeds their needs. So you're doing these tools to address the needs of the citizens and the users, but also to make sure that then they will use it in case they are the target groups of the, let's say, of the activities, but that anyway the information they provide and that is included in the digital twins is then effective. So the next slide. In general, the conclusions for this presentation is that in the framework of the capacity building activities of Living-in-EU, we want to empower the digital maturity of the signatories of this movement, so regional and city authorities. We want to collaborate with DT4REGIOns and other initiatives to leverage existing resources. So there's a lot around, and we don't need to replicate again, but we just need to frame this within the context of our project. And of course, all the capacity building activities need to align with the overall objectives and actions of Living-in-EU. And what we are doing is to coordinate with the other subgroups to support an holistic development and knowledge sharing, in the sense that we can address, for example, the aspect of digital twins, as I said, from a capacity building perspective, but then we have to consider technical, legal, financial aspects, etc. So we really want to empower public authorities to consider all these aspects when it comes to then uptake of the solutions. Next, and I think last slide. No, sorry, next one. Yeah, no, it's the problem is that I had included in my presentation, but then, yeah, I just say it in words. So I wanted to make a bit of alignment of this presentation with the concept of community of mutual learners, as you explained it very broadly before. So I think it's very important to explore this kind of new tools to encourage the collaborative learning and knowledge sharing, because we are doing many things online, some things are in person, but there might be new ways of facilitate the exchange of ideas, of lessons learned and concerns that it's I mean, there's a way of meeting in person that is very effective, also to have networking opportunities and dig more into the topics in also in a more informal way. But there are also concerns of traveling. There are after COVID, we saw that providing more and more digital opportunities and digital spaces for exchange is also a democratization in a way, because many of the things were happening in Brussels, at least for what we are concerned. And so you could see much more participation from cities of Germany, Holland, Belgium itself, France. It was much easier for them to travel for one day. And also countries that can afford the trip. So in a way, this was a democratization of the participation, but it also reduces the effectiveness of exchange, that it's not only a notional exchange, but it's also a personal one. So you can see that projects go more smoothly when there is also personal exchange. So promoting collective learning experience for participants, it's a very key topic. And if there are new opportunities in this direction, as our project is lasting for the next 3 years, we will be happy to explore them. So it was very informative.
Thank you very much. Giacomo, we are losing from time to time in the camera. You are submerging. We are now looking just for your half of your face. If you could do it. Thank you.
Maybe my screen was moving.
Yeah, you were just.
No, I was not going down, but maybe the screen was
afternoon. Okay, thank you. That's okay. Now much better. So now we are going to have we go to the part of the open debate, and I would like also to open the room also for questions. Please feel free, all the attendees, to translate the questions as well if you want to intervene or you want to comment something through the chat, or you raise your hand in order to have these comments. But I think that there is an urgent question that we have to solve now in the context of our discussion, and you were mentioning it in the last one, Giacomo. That is, okay, now we are from time to time, we know that, for instance, the European Commission is reducing drastically the number of flights that the commissioners are having, that we are also reducing drastically the numbers of flights and trips and so on. So eventually these virtual communities are going to be more and more important. Yesterday, also Apple presented their new headset for virtual reality, more or less 4,000 euros. Okay, so it is really, really expensive. But this is not glasses. They said this is your new computer in 10 years' time. If you want to have it now, you just pay 4,000. But in 10 years' time, you are watching now the computer in 10 years' time in order to have access to these virtual environments and actions. So I would like to open now the room in order to discuss here. How do you perceive, Giacomo, also Anna, in the picture that Giacomo already presented, the role or the place in which these digital communities of mutual learning can be implemented. From these circles that you were driving, Giacomo, where is the place where you think that this mutual learning community has to be identified?
For me, it will be mainly for example, in our case, in the activities of the education and capacity building subgroup, that it's mainly a space for exchange, because okay, you have some capacity building materials that can be just recordings or more unidirectional informative tools, but that one is really a meeting space. And when I started working also with on other associations, but we had working groups, the added value was really to come together, has always been come together and exchange in a semi-structured way. So you have an agenda, you have some topics that you have decided beforehand, but then it's really linked to sharing knowledge. So you might not have prepared it beforehand, and you can come up with something very insightful. And in a virtual environment like we experimented now, like also with Teams, you raise your hand and you have to wait, and then people do something else during the meeting. So it's.
And do you have a roadmap for that in Living-in.eu already? Or do you have any specific roadmap for that to happen, or is it going to be appearing in the expected to be appearing, but with no specific roadmap in Living-in.eu?
No, it's not clear yet. As for the moment, mainly of the meetings are supposed to be online, also because the Commission is it's giving this as an indication. But so I think we are also just looking for what are the new options, but we don't have a specific work on what are the supporting tools like the one you described before. But
I understand. I understand. How do you perceive, Anna, this comment that Giacomo was doing about the presence of structured learning paths with unstructured or non-structured or non-formal spaces, such as the virtual learning communities and virtual spaces that you were describing? Probably this cohabitance of these two models is a place for research, I suppose.
Yes, definitely. So in my opinion, regarding what you mentioned about this Apple new headset and this computer in your eyes and this experience that may be the future of what we now understand of the collaborating in virtual terms, right? So I understand that the next steps and the close future on these matters are really linked into understand which are these implementations. So as Giacomo was mentioning, we do already know how does this Teams work, or several applications that we already managed to understand. But in terms of these virtual environments and this new approach to communication, let's say, I think there are a lot of lines and a lot of roadmaps to be developed, right? So I think that we need to expand what we are projecting now that this may mean for us in regarding to collaboration and to capacity building. So as people 50 years ago did not imagine, even conceive that artificial intelligence would be now being so useful and upon date, things that are being now talked about. I think that now we are missing this conceptualization of what are the real implementations of in which we are developing these experiences, right? So I think that by practicing with these tools and by understanding how do these interactions be and to conceive how can they be useful, I think that by doing this, we will be having a better response to that. That will, of course, be so useful, and so it is the future. I conceive it as the future, and I don't imagine people going to conferences by plane anymore, let's say.
Okay, so how do you definitely how can we do now in order to get up to go advancing? Because what Giacomo was proposing for the subgroup of 5 is a number of training materials from the classical point of view, unidirectional point of view. But at the same time, he was identifying the relevance of mutual learning communities, even though they are not explicitly established in a roadmap as capacity building actions. So there is kind of a contradiction here, and we fully understand that. We can live with that because we are learning how to implement it. So my question here would be, to what extent, now you were mentioning, Giacomo, the digital twins, we developed also the training for digital twins in DT4 regions, and eventually all those things should be provided now to the rest of the Europeans. So to what extent do you think that we are advancing towards providing educational training, providing educational materials, or allowing the community to empower themselves through itself through mutual learning actions? So how do you see that this should be equilibrated in some way for the next, let's say, 2 years, 3 years? Very close approach.
Yeah, I think in the meantime that these tools become widely available and also accessible, because I think already I see a bit of a digital divide when using Teams. So I find this very interesting, these new tools, but I guess there will be some difficulties for people of older generations to use them. Also, when we use mirror boards, for example, there are some problems. So I think this is also a very important aspect to take into account. I think in the meantime, it will be in a hybrid way, I guess, that we keep doing maybe once a year, try to condense as much as possible events in physical, so that we avoid 1 day or 2 days trips, but we have, I don't know, like next week in Brussels, the Brussels Urban Summit, and there are many activities in 1 week that take place, and so you minimize numbers of trips, and together with tools that will become more and more, that will go more and more in the direction that you showed, that maybe it will come in a few years. And now you already, I saw today or yesterday with Teams, you can create your own avatar, for example. So there are also things that are evolving on these traditional platforms. I see our work evolving a bit this way in the short term.
Okay, so you mentioned this digital gap, right? That can be enhanced also for some people that are not early adopters, that this new technology, and that is very much valid point. And eventually, this is super important in order to avoid leaving anyone behind, but definitely not an obstacle in order to advance in the development of mutual learning communities. So I'm wondering, we are reaching probably the end of our webinar. So I'm wondering if we're having any other question, or from the rest of the attendees. Please let us know, and feel free to raise your hand and to share your comments in the chat, and we will definitely can integrate them into the conversation. So Odd, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Well, actually evening now. maybe. I could like to ask how in this metaverse that there will be bunch of people and it's unlimited access, handle the privacy. So how can we guarantee that we can have like one-to-one conversations as if we were in a physical space?
May I respond that, Fernando?
Yes,
Okay.
sure, please.
Yeah, right. So thanks Ed for asking that. For now, what we have seen in this demo experience is that, as I was mentioning before, everyone is their own manager in that situation. So you can configure your own audio and how much you listen others' audio, right? So in this case, we were having a discussion earlier this week regarding this topic, and what we what we conceived is that for having this close one-to-one conversation, you need to configure your volume to the minimum so that only people in a close radio diameter, so they can only hear you, right? So you need to be separate. So if you anytime want to join, just let us know and you will have this demo experience. You are if you are in one side or corner of the room and someone else is in the other side, you may not even listen them, right? But it all depends on how you do configure this setting, this personal setting.
Good. So I'm wondering now that I'm trying to start linking things and wrapping up things to end up this this webinar. From the intervention that Giacomo presented, also what I perceive is that in terms of capacity building, right? One thing is capacity building, providing with learning contents, and another thing is allowing for the development of communities of mutual learning. So eventually what I perceive from also the comments that Anna and Giacomo commented is that eventually we can have a stratification of these communities in terms of early adopters, right? And then the followers who are in some way integrated afterwards. This is happening in all innovation, right? We are having the early adopters that are those who are developing, right? The initial platforms. And then we are having, after these early adopters, we are having the followers who are getting there. And then we have the laggards by the end of the curve. This is something known from the basics of open innovation also that we know. So absolutely, this is the case here as well. So I wonder in this roadmap that maybe we can have for the integration of DT4 regions into the Living.eu, which is one of the tasks that we are having also for the following months. This could be probably a possibility, right? What do you think, Giacomo? Just to start with an initial community of early adopters to develop the basis in order to answer the doubts and comments that Anna was also posing, so that we are having a safer space and a more developed space in order to open into the rest of the community. This would allow also to have already running community that is probably being created, co-created from these early adopters that are more familiar with the technology, that can also lead with hand by hand to the rest of the users. I'm thinking about the digital twin communities, which is something in which I have now a lot of very high quality material, for instance, in terms of training materials and also bibliography. How would you see this approach, Anna? Do you see any fail or failure in having these early adopters first and then the community of followers, or should you think that it should be better just to go for the open approach from the scratch? I'm not really sure.
I don't know if Giacomo wanted to say something.
No, for me, just quickly, I think it can be a good idea. Also, we have involved in, for example, in that webinar, already 3 projects that have already done some activities, and that also involved the use of this kind of technologies at the local level to test it with the local users. So definitely people that know about it, and we could involve these early adopters in testing this solution.
Anna?
Yeah, so yeah. Well, I would only say that, of course, having an early adopter of any starting idea or conceiving any idea or any project is, well, I think that in this particular case of digital transformation and digital environments, that not everyone may be so in touch with the technology, it is of course something important to take into account, right? But for the mutual learning communities approach, I would rather like open access for anyone to join or to propose any concerns or ideas, and so then start developing onwards a project or an idea or a debate or anything like that. So I think it depends a little of which is the main objective of what is being done, right? So if we are talking about a final output and working with, constantly working with digital tools and so on, I would say that it is okay and it is a smart thing to have earlier adopters, so that the process is being overwatched by someone and that this is being developed correctly. But I would also say that for other situations, it would be interesting to have open access so that anyone who have any topics of interest could start developing or even engaging these proposals, right?
This is very interesting, because in some way this in some way creates a roadmap also for the community, for the development of the community itself, which is strategic also, Giacomo, for the project that you are working in regarding these communities of mutual learning for living-in.eu. So eventually this approach of having these initial early adopters in order to develop probably the technological platform, but then opening it up as soon as possible with the rest of the community so that they can have a word and an active role in the co-creation of the and identification of the features should probably be also a good strategy. Well, let us try. Let us see in the following weeks and months to come. Right, we are finishing with our 4 video in 1 week time. Regarding the digital innovation hubs and artificial intelligence approaches. This will provide us with these 4 communities of mutual learning that we will have to develop then further in the context of living-in.eu and with the help of Enol and the rest of the colleagues. So we have been speaking almost for 2 hours now about mutual learning communities and the development of also virtual spaces. So thank you very much for creating together with us this video for entry point of mutual learning communities and virtual spaces. Thank you very much, Giacomo. Thank you very much, Anna, as well. Also, thank you for the rest of the contributors to the for Jennifer and Marco, who couldn't be with us today as well, and also to all those who attended. And we are looking forward to seeing you in the last of our videos and the open debate as well that we will have in Brussels for the closing of the DT4 Regions project. So, Giacomo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much as well.
Thank you, Fernando.
And enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Goodbye.
Same for you. Bye-bye.